informal settlements. And one thing that is coming up, like I've asked, is who is coming to help us. And one of the most vulnerable groups that we know of is children. Children, they seem helpless. They seem not to know who is going to give them direction, because we've had cases where even parents have been trying to help their children deal with this situation, because it's affecting them in different other ways. Psychologically, it's affecting them mentally, it's affecting them physically, and in some extent, unfortunately, we have lost some children. And so this is a question, and as we Total News, we figured, let us have this conversation. Let us engage members of the public, let us engage children, let us engage parents, and let us engage experts who are at the forefront of ensuring that we manage this particular time. And children, for example, are asking who is coming to save us in education, for example. I am in a group with children, and one of the child just talked about the current the developing stories, the president stating that the school reopening has again been postponed. And so the child is like, I want to finish school, so how is this going to work out for me? Because I want to continue with my education. And education is not the only place that children are affected. We have children being affected, and their right to housing, for example, is being infringed, because we find that their houses are being swept away. We saw the cases in Mai Mahi, for example. We've seen the cases in informal settlements. We have children having their houses being swept away, and their parents are helpless. Sometimes the society as a whole is helpless. We also have their right to food, because given the situation, their parents cannot maybe go out and find food, and the food maybe that was in store, for example, is being swept away also and being affected by the floods. So we have the right to clothing, which is also being affected. So the critical question is, who is coming to help us? And as you all join in, today we are joined with we have an amazing panel, which is comprised of a child, because at Total News, child participation and the voice of the child is really core and critical in addressing issues that affect them. We also have a parent who is going to be talking from their perspective on the effects of these floods. And we also have an expert, someone who has been at the forefront, not only in this particular moment, and but someone who has been in different other scenarios like this. Someone who was at the forefront, and the organization that they work for is at the forefront of ensuring that we mitigate some of these occurrences. And it could be pandemics, it could be natural disasters that are affecting our society. And so we're going to have them speak to us today. We're going to have this is an open conversation, and so we're going to speak to them. I'm happy for them to have joined me, and I will let them introduce themselves, starting with the child who is here and is going to tell us who they are, and also maybe just tell us how, to start us off, they have been affected and what they think of the current situation. So we have the child joining us. He's here with me, so you will see the camera switch to and from me. And thank you, welcome.
Hi everybody, my name is Evans Otieno. I'm the current governor for Kibra Sub-County DCA. I'm a trained journalist at Total News. I am a trained child advocate, and those are my titles for now. Yeah. And I'm also a panelist for today.
Yeah, nice having you, Evans. Thank you so much. We also have a parent joining us, and in one way or another, I believe they have been affected by the floods. It could be directly or indirectly, through a neighbor, through a friend, through a relative. Maybe they could introduce themselves and tell us who they are, and maybe just highlight on the effects and what they think about the current state of flooding in our country. Yes, Simon Gracious.
Hi, good evening. Yeah, it's good evening to everyone. You can hear me, Joseph?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much again. Thank you for being here. My name is Wangare. I'm a parent, a close parent to Mtoto News. And I've come here to give my view about the keeping our children safe, because at this point we are able to see the damage, the crisis that have our kids have been caused. Like, I can explain my issue and say I'm a close neighbor to Madare, because I just come from Eastlands, and the crisis is too much. Most of the kids have been displaced. If we talk of if I talk of kids, I'm talking about the families, but now let me key over about the children. The kids there, they have lost clothes, they have lost everything, they have even lost hope. It has taken us, like yesterday, I can say the whole of my afternoon, I was in Mathare at the Chiefs Camp area. We were trying to have time with those kids and give them hope that there is still something else that is going to come. We were happy to see, like yesterday, the government was there, that they supported the parents with so we can say so much, because like they don't have anything in terms of like food, in terms of like beddings. And we saw the government coming in, and that was one of something that was giving hope to the children, and to see that there is something else and something good that is coming to come. So like what I can say is when all this happen, I believe I want to say that the kids, it's a lot of trauma, and they are really being affected. Leave alone even the kids that are there, even the kids that are at a safe place, but seeing what the other kids in those areas are going through, it has really been very devastating. Personally, I can talk about my own kids who are able to see what other kids are going through, and I'm able to come and tell them that what these kids are going through. And surely we can say we should have modules on how we can navigate and make sure that our kids are safe at this time, and preparation in other times that would come, not only on this climate action crisis, but in most of the crises that would come and affect our children. Thank you for now.
Ms. Gracious, thank you also for being a friend of Mtoto News, and also for being at the forefront of ensuring that children in the Madare area, for example, that you're close to, are able to get the help, and you're able to get your hands on the situation and do your best to ensure that you're helping these children. You've mentioned something really key, and I think we will have to revisit that, is about children losing hope, because you mentioned they lost everything. They lost clothes, they lost their food, for example, they lost even relatives sometimes. And then you mentioned something really key, and they are losing hope. So thank you so much. We'll get back to that. And the last person in our panel today, we have Mr. Alex Ayub, and I believe he's going to tell us more of who he is. And like I mentioned, he's been at the forefront of this, of such scenarios, such disasters, and such natural occurrences with the organization that he works with. So he's going to tell us more about who he is and what, maybe as an organization, they're doing what they're doing, and maybe just help us understand the state of the current floods, and also what effects have they had so far since since when we started experiencing them up to now. And I remember last year, the organization he's working for was talking so much about the El Nino, and is this the El Nino that we were expecting last year, Mr. Ayub?
Thank you so much, Joseph, and thank you for having me. My name is Alex Ayub. I work with the Kenya Red Cross. I'm a disaster responder, and I also within
Hello, Mr. Ayub. We lost you a bit.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so as I was mentioning, my name is Alex Ayub. I work with the Kenya Red Cross. I work with, so it's not Onyango, it's Alex Ayub. And so I work with the Kenya Red Cross leading youth programs, and I'm also part of the national disaster response teams for Kenya Red Cross. And part of the work that we do is basically to ensure that we provide help to the communities when they need it. And we do this during normal times and also during disasters. And so we prioritize the most urgent cases of distress, like what we're currently having in this country. On the question, Joseph, whether this is the El Nino that we were waiting for, I would just like to clarify this is normally part of the two seasons that we have in the country that we experience in this region. We every year we experience two seasons. One is what we call the long rains, and the second one is what we call the short rains. So the long rains usually occur between the months of March, April, and May. And so you'll commonly hear technical people calling it the MAM rainfalls. And this is basically to mean March, April, and May, which is the long rains. And then we also have the short rains that come later in the year, in the last quarter of the year, which we call the October, November, December rainfalls, or OND. And so this is normally the short rains. So last year when we were talking about El Nino coming, the prediction was that we were going to have a little bit of more rainfall than normal for the period of the short rains, the OND rainfalls. And so what we were most likely going to see was a situation where there was going to be prolonged periods of rainfall, and at the same time the rains were going to exceed the normal levels, which we call above average levels as experienced in the previous years. And so this the likelihood that this happened, some areas experienced it, some areas did not experience it last year. So what we're currently experiencing is not El Nino, but it's the long rains of the year. And the reason why they're having a little bit of a devastating effects this time round is because we are experiencing a little bit of more than average, or what we call above average rainfalls for what is usually experienced during this particular period. And so Kenya Red Cross has been working closely with the various other agencies in the communities. One, we were doing the risk communication. We were working with the Kenya Meteorological Department to communicate in what we call the early warning, early action. And a lot of communication was going on in the media, the communities, using social and community networks, that these rains were coming and that these rains would have certain effects. Although the one thing that we must acknowledge is that some of the effects were not very predictable to the level best that many of the agencies could have done it. And so that is the one thing that I think as a country caught a lot of people off guard. But in terms of Kenya Red Cross preparations and prepositioning for the flood situation that happened, we had a lot of teams that were being trained on aqua rescue. We had a lot of teams that were being trained in general response. So generally, that is the current situation of what we are having. And we have been seeing the situation changing over time. We moved from the originally predicted counties to be affected were slightly less than 30, but right now within this week we have seen an increase of 5 more counties into that list, now bringing to a total of 38 counties that have so far been affected by the floods. A number of households have already been affected. We're talking about over 38,000 by yesterday households that have already been affected, and households here we mean what would easily be classified as a family unit in the community. We have also experienced unfortunate incidences of death as well. That unfortunately also children have been among those numbers. And so we are having a very destabilizing situation in terms of lives, lifestyles, and livelihoods of Kenyans. Yeah, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Alex, for just painting a clear picture, or rather a picture of what is on the ground, because you are on the ground, and like you mentioned, you, as the Kenya Red Cross, you prioritize critical cases, and this is one of the critical issues or occurrences that we have in this country. And we really appreciate the kind of work you as an individual is doing, and also I've seen you around the media talking about, and not only recently but also for quite some time, talking about how the society and also everyone can try to keep safe and also try to help in fighting and mitigating some of the effects of these cases. And so maybe if I could get back to you and talk about the interventions, because when you talk about 38,000 households, this is, like you mentioned, 38,000 families, and this is quite a huge number given looking at the scale of I want to call it disaster, or damage, the scale of damage. And maybe you could mention to us what are some of the interventions that have so far been put in place to ensure that these 38,000 families, which have been affected already, are not do not continue feeling the depth of this particular disaster or damage, and what are you also doing to ensure that other families are not finding themselves in this particular place, despite the fact that you've mentioned there's a lot of unpredictability on the effects of the rains, and also mentioning that it was expected that a certain number of counties will be affected, but now when you look at it, we realize that more and more counties are being affected. So what are some of the interventions that you have done as an organization, and also you have seen going around the community, because the community is really at the forefront of this particular saving or salvaging situations? Maybe you can tell us the interventions that have been put in place.
Yeah, thanks, Joseph. Sorry, I was just confirming as you're speaking, the latest data is at today, now, and we're talking about 53,000 and not 38,000. That number keeps changing very fast. And by the way, this information is available on our website, so we keep updating it, and it's something that the public can access in terms of how the numbers are changing. So we have about over 53,000 households that have been affected, and we also have 28,000, which is slightly more than half of the numbers of these houses affected, being totally displaced. And so this means these are families that can no longer be in their usual spaces where they call homes. And your question generally revolves around what are the interventions that are currently being undertaken by the Kenya Red Cross and various other stakeholders. And the second part of your question then was really looking at what is happening to try and mitigate further effects of these rains to families and communities in Kenya. On the first question of the interventions, one of the things that is quite critical to note is what is the effect of floods generally to the country, and that will really tell us what interventions we are looking at. Number one is that effects generally you're having floods being excessive water levels, excessive rainfall, excessive water levels basically rising and occupying part of the land that is usually dry land. And this is the one thing that we have to really understand in relation to what this flood is about. So you have originally areas that are considered dry lands being occupied by water. And these are water levels that are quite high, and that means would potentially have certain effects. Number one, they would cause death to both human beings and animals. And the other interesting thing is that they also have an effect of sweeping away vegetation. And when we say vegetation, is inclusive of what we call food crops for communities. The second bit of it is that it has serious effects on buildings and houses where people live. And that means there is a likelihood that buildings will be demolished. There's a likelihood that houses will be marooned, depending on the structures that are there, depending on their location as well. The third thing that you're most likely looking at in the event of a flood situation is that there's going to be serious effects on infrastructure. So if you're talking about road infrastructure, if you're talking about communication infrastructure, electricity infrastructure, so you're going to have all this being affected, depending also on their location, how well they have been constructed, how well they have been developed, and how swift we are in relation to just mitigating their damage. So we have roads that are cut off. I think at the beginning of this week, we had 46 roads that had been cut off, meaning they can no longer be used as normally used. Now, what closely related to the infrastructure damage is the conversation around social amenities and general lives and lifestyles and livelihoods of our people. So when you have roads cut off, it means certain hospitals are no longer accessible, and health facilities, and we actually have that data as well. We also have people not being able to undertake their normal economic activities, for instance, going to workplaces, going to the market, going to the farms, and that kind of things. And then we also have situations whereby schools can no longer be accessed. Some of them are actually part of the infrastructure that is damaged as well. But then there also the conversation around accessibility. Bridges are brought down, and these are things that become quite difficult. So in light of this, then what happens in terms of the interventions? First things first is saving lives. So Kenya Red Cross has been on the ground conducting what we call search and rescue operations to try and save lives of those who have been marooned, or those who have been. Some of them have actually been buried by the sudden movements in terms of the earth structures. The other thing beyond saving lives is to protect lives as well. So that means those who have been saved is then now we are trying to keep them safe, check that the hospitals provide first aid and health. Then the third thing around that is also to preserve and prevent further damage, which is what you basically be doing. And you've had the government talking about evacuations. So we've been doing risk communication to the communities that are living in high risk areas. And so we are really talking about being able to support them to move to higher grounds, and if not higher grounds, safer grounds where possible. The second bit about it is also just ensuring then that they're able to avoid potential areas of hazards, for example, excessive waters that are probably beyond certain levels than usual. And lastly, we also have a lot of food interventions and shelter interventions. So we also providing food and non-food items to those communities that have been affected. For example, we have been doing distribution in Nairobi, I think this week. I'm not so sure if Simon's Garcia, you managed to have an interaction with our teams, but we were in Mathare yesterday as well, providing food distribution and hot meals to those who have been affected. And then lastly, we also we also have things like clothing, blankets, cooking utensils, and also in the coming days, we're also going to see a lot of need for medication, because then there are a lot of waterborne diseases that might come up. Malaria might go back on the surge. Things like cholera, typhoid might also go back on the surge, and we're also looking at clean water, clean and safe water for drinking and home use as well. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ayub, for highlighting all this and just assuring us that something is being done, because like Ms. Gracias had mentioned, people are losing hope. People are looking at the situation. People are looking around them looking at the environment, and they're thinking there's nothing to be done. And maybe I've been affected this much, and I don't think anything is being done. And so I just want to commend you, because it is important that we understand that something is being done. Despite all these roads being cut off, 46 roads is not something simple. Despite all these 53,000 families being affected, we just realized that this is really key. And maybe you can also highlight later on how many children, if you have the figures, have been affected. But then I just want to talk to Ms. Gracias, the parent, on you mentioned that I can see someone requesting the link. It is being shared in a few. The comment section will have the link being shared for the different statistics from the Red Cross on how the current effects and the state of the floods in the country. So wanting to talk to Ms. Gracias, the parent, we have talked, Mr. Ayub has talked about the developing stories and shooting from 38,000 families to 53,000 families. And just today we had the president, Right Honorable President William Ruto, Dr. William Ruto, having a presser at 1 p.m. And so one of the things that has been mentioned is that schools reopening has been postponed again. As a parent, as someone who was anticipating, you have children that were anticipating to go back to school. How does this make you feel? What do you make of these schools being reopening, being postponed from Monday? That we had expected it to be opened on Monday after the postponement last week, but then also just looking that it has been postponed again. What do you make of this as a parent, and how do you think it is going to affect the children and the society as a whole?
Thank you so much again. I want to report again about now the back to school. It's not a good thing, what I can say, as expected from many of the parents, because sometimes when these kids are at home, you find yourself so much into, sometimes you're not able to go into your hustles. But now again, we ask ourselves, from the data in the morning that we were able to get from the Ministry of Interior, we were given the number of 1,967 schools that have been affected. So let us just come back and ask yourself, how many children, because now are institutions, the number of children now who are at home wondering what next. You see, what next to do? Because as much as we can say this, we say the highest number of schools are the schools that the children, maybe they are able to go to school. But now the question comes, what if we give the opportunity for those who are like in Nairobi? Most of the schools are not affected, but there are also schools that are affected. But now comes again now the question, like now when we talk about, let me talk about the situation in Mathare. That is where I've been yesterday and today. Tomorrow we are happening to be at Pipeline and those other areas. The school, the kids have really, let me talk about the children. I'm really passionate about the welfare of the children. That is where we are there. That is where my heart is. That is what I'm crying for. As much as when I talk about children, I'm talking about the families. You're finding kids are telling you we cannot even go to school. Now we don't have uniform. Our books were swept away. They have no hope again now. So what I can say at this point is we safety first. Children first. We have to make sure that despite all, regardless of the government pushing now again, even if it will take another month, but we must make sure that our children are in safe environment. They are in safe standard ways of their transport to go to school. We are able to understand how far this rainfall would happen, because like we understand, this rain are coming up from 3. Even today, the information that came was saying there'll be the mother of rainfall from 3 p.m. So assuming we send our children to school, most of them are daily, they are day scholars. So we're supposed now to take them to school half day. Now it is the process of picking the kids back at home. So I would say most of the parents may feel that no, we want these kids back to school, but now what about the safety? You see, so me personally, I would say we be calm as parents. We be calm. The situations are hard. Sometimes we are not able to go out and do our hustles, having these young kids at home because they also have to be taken care of. So you find yourself, you're so tired. But let us not look at that. Let us look at saving these kids' life. We've seen what happened in I can't remember, but just some place before Mathare, kids were swept away. We have seen those videos. So assuming it's our own children that we say, this is my child going, you see. So me, what I would say, the challenge is there. We need these kids back to school, but let us rethink back and say, children first. We must make sure the environment is conducive. We must make sure that, because like, let us talk about even water. Let me tell you, like in Eastlands, last week and this week, there have been no running water. Why? The other week that it started raining, when the water came, it was full of sewage. The water was sewage. In fact, it is sewage that was coming from the taps. So now we send our kids to school. These are kind of things they're supposed to, the water is something they have to use. Then how are we going? Now that comes now health hazard again. So you send your child to school, then he's back, you're not spending a lot with the hospital bills and what have you. So personally, I would say it is a crisis. It is not so welcoming, but we'll have to say and live with it as per now, because we must make sure and understand that our children must have the best safety. They must be safe. And by the time we have to wait until we are advised further and better by the government. That is my findings as now is concerned.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gracias, for the views, and also just mentioning and highlighting something that is really important on safety first. Because I believe, as a person, I believe that we might want to do all these things, but if our children are being compromised, or if our children are being put in compromising situation where their safety is being put on the edge, then we're not making any progress, because we're supposed to be protecting these children. And so thank you so much for that. We'll get back to that. And maybe just I can hear from the child, maybe just to paint a picture from their perspective. What do they make of this whole flood season and this whole long race, as Mr. Ayub has called them? And what do you make of it, Evans? I know you're a child, you want to play, maybe you cannot go outside, you want to do other things, other activities now that you're home, and maybe you're preparing for school. What do you think about the current situation of floods in our country?
For me, as a child, I think right now what the government should do, the government should take action. And as we have said, safety first. If you have to be safe first. Now, I was thinking during that time of Corona, some children were learning at the comfort of their places. So I think we could do this for places like me. I have been affected, but not like I have been affected through friends. Some of my friends, like their houses, like were swept away, and there are some structures which were at our place, and everything was just like it was not so well for them to go to school. Now, I think we could do it the way we used to do it during Corona times, because some of the children were not able to get these gadgets to learn with. But for those people who know how to use these gadgets, those people who, like, example me, when I go to our school, I know that in our school we have gadgets, and we have a group of parents, the whole school, they can communicate there if they're going to like supply all the tablets to our doorstep, so that we can learn from the comfort of our place. Even when it's raining, we can still learn. But I think now, what about those other children who don't know how to use like this gadget, who have not been trained? Like, if I have not been trained on how to use a gadget, or on how to tweet, or on how to use X, or those social media stuff, those social media apps and links and stuff, like, how will I know which one is right, which one is wrong? I won't know. I won't be able to know. So we should have like right now, for the people who can learn. Let's say that I go to school, but in switches are free, and we're supposed to get to school, like get home from school at 5. Now you see, there is that like there's that a thing of going home late. So if you had that set schedule, like if those scientists say it's going to rain tomorrow, starting from 2 p.m., we learn like from, let's say, 7 to 12 p.m. Then by 7 we take lunch, we're home. But that won't work. So I just think I'm not sure it will work. I'm not sure. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Because some of the places, the schools are not really like having nice facilities. Some of the places, they are insecure. During these rainy seasons, you might find some people, they take like, if let's say your house was drowned and they have found your things, now they'll be like, oh no, we know this kid, let us try to take him from school, and it won't be safe. So I think as the government, as a child, I think the government can help in this way. For those people who know how to use tech and internet, like the government had donated some tablets. Yeah, those tablets could be used for learning, and then for these other ones, if we had like a way, we just find a way because we can't be learning and the others are not learning just because they don't know how to use it. It's not so good. It's like we're abusing them. So I don't think I have an innovation right now. I don't think I can imagine something else. But I think the government should do something. That's what I think about the government, about this um let crisis. Let me call it a crisis because it's rainy and yeah. So the government could donate some tablets for those people who know how to use tech, and for those other ones, they could find a way because even in school when we learn, there are those people who don't like know everything and they don't catch everything. But when we come now out of school, we still get them moving on. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe Evans, thank you so much for mentioning how education has been affected. And maybe you can also tell us what other areas of your life as a child and other children that maybe you have talked to, what other areas of their lives have been affected by the current situation?
Right now, I can say I have been affected directly because all my friends lost their parents because it was raining. Their parents are trying to like try not to rain not to get to their house because it's in a like their house was not in that good condition. So when they were trying, they like they they lost their parents because it got so rainy and their house flooded until inside and their parents tried to swim but they were not able. They're still looking for their parents. When they find them, they'll be able to be saved. Um, right now, planes like way fast for my life as a kid. As a kid, I think I have been affected. But apart from that of friendship thing, my friends are like, um, I don't want to go back to school, even if they can go back to school, because sometimes they are being affected by the weather. Let's say right now it is a bit cold, and because it is cold, they're like, if I go to school, if I was at home, it would be like much more safe. So I don't think they're having a good meaning. They're thinking very well about the education stuff, which is making me not fluent because how will I ever get to learn? Because we also need to learn. What like if you did not have education, how would it be? It won't be good. So I think right now we should find out like something. Let's say news, the way children see news and see those cartoons, we find a way to convince and change the mindset of those people or of those children who do not want to go to school because maybe the weather is not favorable, maybe they just don't want to go to school, and that's not favoring some of their friends, which is not so good. If it's not favoring you, how will you learn? Like, how will you learn forever if it's raining forever? It won't rain forever. So that's what I think. Like, we find ways to change their mindsets.
Thank you so much, Evans, for giving us a perspective for giving us a child's perspective. And so just trying to look at it, mentioning all those ways, and he's mentioned something critical that I have been thinking of, and something that I've also seen being talked about in the online, in the digital space, the social media, for example, that he has mentioned. Children nowadays are there, and just one of the solutions, and something innovative, and maybe if Mr. Alex can help us answer this, maybe just to mention what are some of the innovative solutions and or quick solutions. If you mentioned about the weather being unpredictable, you mentioned about the counties affected being unpredictable, and we also have cyclone Hidayah coming up, and which has been mentioned by the government and the Met Department. So what do you think are some of the solutions or innovative solutions, digitally or otherwise, that can be used to help manage or mitigate the effects of the current floods?
Well, thank you so much, Joseph, once again. So the noise is okay, noise on my end, but let me know if you're struggling to hear me. So currently, I think I like what Ivan said, safety first. So we are basically telling, and there is no, cannot innovate life, basically. I mean, life is life, and if it's gone, it's gone. And so what we're really asking Kenyans, what we're really asking Kenyans is, look, there's already clear communication on where we are expecting situations to worsen. For instance, there's a communique that is saying that you will be experiencing more rainfalls in the coastal areas. So the coastal areas are just about to go to their peak in the month of May, as compared to the rest of the country that probably had their peak in the month of April. And so if you notice that particular pattern, there's a particular movement now towards the coast. If you realize what has been happening also in Nairobi, you would hear things started happening all the way from the western parts of Kenya, like Victoria, coming backwards, came all the way to Nakuru, had the flooding area. I mean, the unfortunate incident in Maimahio. Now, the other day we had a situation in Kiambu, we had a situation in Thika Road, and yesterday the situation was in Mombasa Road. So if you notice that particular trend, there is a general shift in terms of the rainfall, and that is also corroborated by the information from the Kenya Meteorological Department that the coastal areas is one to watch. So it's just basic logic. Coastal areas is the low-lying areas. We're expecting water levels to rise significantly higher because of also the rivers that are draining their waters to the Indian Ocean, but also because of the flow back that might happen, and we also talk about the cyclone Hidayah that is coming up, that is most likely to come up. So safety first, meaning moving to areas that are considered to be safer. And that means the first thing, before even waiting for the government and many other stakeholders, we always ask, do you have relatives? Do you have friends that you can actually go to? There are places that are still considered to be safe. And that is the first thing that we're really looking at. The second thing is to be on the watch, be on the lookout of communication. And this is the time, I don't know, Joseph, if you remember back in the days, we used to have a segment on weather patterns, and you'll be having someone coming in. A lot of us grew up wanting to become weathermen and weather women at the same time, where you'd actually, yes, and that nowadays disappeared. You no longer see that. The only places you see that is Al Jazeera, UN, and BBC. I mean, CNN and BBC, when they're talking about weather patterns in certain areas. And so this is the time that we really need to go back to that and say, are we talking about the weather enough? And are we using information from the weathermen and the weather women enough to be able to make decisions in terms of in terms of our lifestyles and livelihoods? So being on the lookout, watch news, look at what other advisory is coming out. If you go to the website, for example, for the Kenya Red Cross, you're actually going to find there's an advisory there talking about what the public should do, avoid driving through or wading in fast-moving water. Those living within floodplains should remain alert, as floodwaters may even be in the absence of rain. These are things that are already, road users, aviators, and boat operators are advised to exercise caution. These are things this information in the public. I mean, it's in the public. And we also have counties that have been listed for situations to get worse. So being on the lookout for information. Number 3, especially for the sake of children, this is the time that parents need to sit down with their children and discuss the flood situation. Just discuss, even if you're not yet affected, just explain to them what's happening. There's a very weird situation that for children who are living in areas that have not been affected, do not totally understand what exactly are we talking about. When you're telling someone that water levels rose so high in the house that literally everything was submerged, and probably the whole house was brought down. Sometimes it's so for some people for children that doesn't make sense. So this is the time to have conversations with them. Talk to them about floods. Talk to them about ways to be safe. Talk to them about map out certain areas, even within households, that are considered to be a bit higher grounds in the event that water levels come up. For example, you're living in an estate, which is the highest ground in that particular area. If you're living, for example, in the community, for example, in the informal settlements, which are some of the areas that are considered to be higher grounds in those areas. And these areas should be known even to the children as well, even as the government is giving further directions of the same. The last bit of it is clearly to all of us in different spaces as adults in this society, and this generation will judge us very harshly in the future. We're already paying for some of the blunders and mistakes that have been made by previous generations. We are talking about roads that were not constructed to the required standards. I don't know if, Joseph, you're able to see some communication that was going on yesterday. There's one engineer who had actually predicted that Mombasa Road along near the Imara Daima area and the national park, that area was actually a hazard in waiting. And this was an engineer who actually talked about this. That meant that other engineers who worked on the road would have already picked that. Well, yes, there were already some work that was started, but it was not enough. So we are talking about infrastructure that is meeting the standard and putting the lives of people at risk. We are talking about, and this is the time that even as we're looking at development, it has to be a holistic, sustainable development. If you're constructing a school, can that be mapped out in a way to show, is it accessible even in the event of floods? So there, do we have the problem through a river? How do the bridges look like? You remember a while back, mass comedian had to go in and try to put up for, and this is also just speaking to the children who probably on this call, that your power to influence change is, you don't have to wait to become adults like some of us. All you need to do is start with what can happen. You remember that child who really inspired, and today she has a bridge named county because some to take her plight away going to school, which was very risky and dangerous. So these are things that are in this country, but some are being constructed are also not meeting standards. Some of the priorities, health facilities that are not accessible in the event that the rains can come up, and so you wonder what do they exist. So these are conversations we really need to have. We really need to influence the spaces and look at sustainable, holistic development for today and the future generations. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alex, because you also bring something critical. Are we on, for example, the example of the case study of the engineer, are we really prepared as a nation? Because that is something that was highlighted. But then the people that we have put in charge of us, are they really ensuring that they're taking care of us? Are they looking at all this information being put out here? And the engineers that are working on these roads, for example, are they ensuring that we have safety first, as the child has mentioned, Evans, and also as the parent has mentioned? Are they ensuring that they are bringing that up? And thank you so much for highlighting that you've actually preempted the question that I wanted to ask on the responsibilities, because we have your organization as Red Cross working tirelessly to ensure that everyone is safe in this particular season. And we also have some sectors of the government which have been questioned on their preparedness and also on their action, because some of the strategies and some of the ways that they're asking, the intervention that they're asking the citizenry to take seem not to be practical on the citizenry perspective. But then thank you so much for highlighting that. And I just want to bring up also the role that both parents and children are having to play in this. And I love the fact that you mentioned that sitting down with your child, sitting down with that child and telling them this is the current situation, making them understand, because we talk a lot about them not being too young to understand, and so, because sometimes we have that assumption, and sometimes parents have that assumption that my child is too young to understand floods, for example, my child is too young to understand COVID, for example, and any other pandemic, any other crisis that we have as a nation, and we think that this child is too young to understand this, but they understand, they know what's happening, and they know, and they can even be prepared mentally. We talked about children being affected psychologically, mentally, and in different other ways, but then just having a sit down with them and ensuring that they're able to understand and know that this is happening is really critical. And maybe, thank you so much for highlighting that. And also maybe, I don't know if you have any other answer or any other response on how and the role that both parents and children can play, especially children and their parents, to ensure that they're keeping themselves safe. Alex. And before Alex comes in, I want to mention that the link has been posted in the chat section, and you can visit the link by Red Cross, and just so you can see some of the highlights and some of the statistics that the Kenya Red Cross is putting across to ensure that everyone is having an up-to-date access to this information. And also, we'll be sharing at the end of this webinar, we'll also be sharing some of the communication that has been made from the government, and also some of the emergency numbers that will be that are on 24 hours that you can call in case of an emergency on your end. So, Mr. Alex, maybe give us more responses on the role that children and parents can play to ensure that they're keeping themselves safe.
Thanks, Joseph. One is general information. I think that is one thing I already mentioned, that just get to know. So parents get to know whether your area is considered as a high-risk area from a county perspective, but even from a locality perspective, and even geographically, whether it's considered as a high-risk areas. For example, the areas along river banks, and especially the informal settlements in Nairobi, those are already considered as high-risk areas. So that's the first thing from a parent perspective. The second thing is communicate this to the child and say, look, part of what we are going to experience is that our area has also been mapped out as potential high-risk area. And so if you're taking any action as a parent, that will make them try to understand why we are, if for example, we are moving, a child will want to understand, Mom, why are we, Dad, why are we moving from our home? And there's nothing that's happening. Just say, look, we are having this area has already been mapped out as a high-risk area, and try to manage that conversation with the child. The second bit about children is one, or rather, first of all, still taking to the parent, once you've already had the information about risks involved, the second bit of it is what to do in the event of occurrence of that risk. And that's what I was talking about, that one, get to understand. So if water comes into the house and we are caught unaware, where is the highest point? Sometimes you're encouraged, if for example, the highest point is on top of a table, is on top of a particular spot within the house, then that's where you will encourage the children to go over as they are waiting for help to come. And this is something that we really, really encourage in the event that happens. The other bit of it, you also advise that when you're doing that, do not move to a very constrained area, so that, for example, for those of us who are lucky to have like house chimneys in the house, do not move to such spots, because then it will make water levels might rise and actually make it difficult for you to be rescued as well. So you just move in an open area within the house where possible.
Recording in progress.
Can anyone hear me? Okay. Okay, thanks, Alpha, for confirming that you can hear me. Yes, so the second bit, or rather the next bit I was talking about, is just being able to map out the higher grounds. And then the third bit is also communicating emergency numbers. And this is very, very important. And I know Joseph is going to be able to share that along the call. But for Kenya Red Cross is 1199. It's toll free. It's 24 hours. Literally where I'm seated behind me is where it's the emergency operations center that works 24/7. So that number, anytime you call in case of anything. And that also means that we need to ensure that certain gadgets are on. For example, keep your phones charged in many times. Please avoid over usage, unnecessary usage of the phones, for example, for entertainment purposes, because then you might need them through the night. And with the sudden power surges that you're seeing, then you do not want to be in such a space. If you have a power bank, keep it charged. If you have a phone that is not the smartphone that uses a lot of power, please keep it charged, because it might help you. And then important documents as well for children and for families can be stored in a proper way. For example, keep them inside nylon bags that cannot allow water to seep in, so that in the event that floods come in, you still have your documents in place. For children, please listen to the instructions that are coming from the adults and the parents and the guardians. I know some of the children also have access to digital equipment. Look at some of the advisory that is coming in. And you can also help, in fact, actually help our parents, because then there are certain information that children actually understands better than parents, and so, or reaches parents faster. I mean, children faster than parents. So also try and have these discussions with your parents, especially for some of us who have parents who might not be able to comprehend some of the information that is coming in terms of reading and writing. Then listening to the instructions and adhering to them. Avoid playing in water that is fast moving, and generally just avoid playing inside water, especially water that is in certain collected areas, because this also comes, other than the risk of being swept away and the risk of drowning, this also comes with the risk of diseases as well. So we also encourage children to keep away from collected water in their vicinity. The other bit is also we encourage, because of the risk of waterborne diseases as well. Be sure that you confirm with your parent if the water that you are just about to use for drinking or for cooking is safe to use, because then, like you've had the situation from Gracia she was just talking about, there is a space where some areas the water taps have already been contaminated, and that means whatever water you might be using might be contaminated. So this is the time to talk to your parent about whether water that you're using has been boiled, where possible, has been treated where possible, because then there could be a possibility. You might not know it because it's not flooding in your area, but that water is coming from elsewhere, and along the way, some of those water pipes could already be compromised with. The last bit is in the event that some of you have, and maybe this is a wake-up call in the future, this is the time for parents to try and teach your children about aqua rescue, about swimming. By the way, majority of the deaths that happen during floods come because of drowning. And if people had some basic skills, not even to swim to move, but to keep afloat for some time, then that also helps. It can reduce the risk of death, because then it can increase the time before rescuers come to your help. So this is the thinking, where possible, if possible, and I know this is also something that might have a financial impacts on parents and households, but if there's an opportunity for your child to learn swimming skills, might be very important for them in the future, today or in the future. Some of us might not have gotten that opportunity, but you're already saying, for the sake of our children, because you're talking about sustainable development as well, try and equip them with these skills, even at the minimal, keeping them afloat for some time. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I realized my microphone was muted. Thank you so much, Mr. Alex, and for highlighting that. And just before I go to Ms. Gracias, I want to highlight something that you mentioned that is really critical about the basic aqua skills. And this, I want to assure every child here and every other person here that this is not a call for you to go to something that, as young, when we were younger back in the days, we used to call it Fompararo. And it is to have children, just as young children are going to the swamps, for example, or areas that was initially swamped, and we find ourselves trying to take a dive into those areas. So that is a risk for children, and so this is not a call for you to go and try and gain the aqua skills on that particular platform, because you need a guided adult and someone that's going to ensure that you're safeguarded while you're taking this or getting this aqua skill. So to Ms. Gracias, and I know our time is much spent, and just as we are about to conclude, I just want to ask you the same question, sorry. What are you doing as a parent to ensure that you are keeping yourself safe? And Mr. Alex is asking to leave, and maybe just before he leaves, before we could go back to Ms. Gracias, maybe you can tell us, Mr. Alex, you're working at Red Cross, and maybe there's another agency and the community. How can we pull collaborative efforts to ensure that children are safe? And as you answer that, also tell us, what are the do's and don'ts of handling children in this particular crisis?
Yes, thanks, Joseph. And sorry, I just requested Joseph if I could go first because I'm about to leave to the floods coordination meeting that started at 4. So quickly, looking at what you're saying, yes, we are open to collaboration and support. The current, remember now, after today's presidential address, it means all coordinations will be done from the Deputy President's office. If you pick that, we would say all private sectors and other players should be able to be coordinated under that. So that means all of us then are aligned to the to the government's directives through the local administrative areas. But we're also receiving requests from Kenyans, individuals, organizations who also want to participate in the current support. But the one thing that we're trying to do is not to have so many numbers that might end up also making it difficult to even respond and even to provide the support. So kindly, please, if you want to do that, reach out to Kenya Red Cross through the 1199, and you'll be guided in terms of the best approach to take where you want to support the current ongoing situation. And we really need a lot of support, by the way, as we are currently speaking. The second bit to your question, Joseph, is you're talking about the
do's and don'ts when handling children in this particular crisis.
Yes. The best approach to working with children and any organization that works with children really knows this is we talk about doing no more harm to the situation, because if you're going to be helping children in this case, majority of them are already affected from their families, and so there are certain things that you might not be aware of. You might not be aware of any pre-existing situations, conditions. So part of it is dignity and handle children with dignity. I'm seeing a lot of people coming and probably giving food, giving clothes, and taking photos of that, and showing children's faces, and this is actually beyond data protection, which is an illegal beyond data protection, which is a legal requirement. There's also part of protecting human dignity as well, because these children grow up and tomorrow they are like you and I. And the question is, do you want to see yourself in such a situation in the future? So part of what needs to be happening is please avoid, where possible, if you check even the photos that are coming from Kenya Red Cross, even for the flood victims themselves, including the parents, we are trying as much as possible to avoid showing their faces, and most of the photos are being taken from the back. And this is around data protection. Do not reveal data for children anywhere. If you have confirmed cases of, say, unfortunate cases of, let's say, deaths or injuries, please beware. Do not share that information without following the right procedures and protocol, because there's a parent somewhere who's worried, who had left in the morning, rains caught up with them in town, and have not yet gone back to their homes in Mathare or Mukuru, and they don't know what is happening. So please do not share this information really without knowing the right procedures. There's a right procedure that is to be used if you come through this information, and there are already local administrative structures that exist within these particular spaces to be undertaken. Number 3, also, there's something about be aware that children could be traumatized, especially seeing water, sudden water coming in their homes, in their houses. And so if you manage to rescue a child, beyond the immediate calls for warmth and food, part of it is also psychosocial support or psychological first aid, just reassuring the children and then specifically the affected child in this particular case. And where you need support with that, of course, Kenya Red Cross also has a counseling center 24/7, so you can call and we can be able to take you through how to give that support if you do not have the capacity to these children, just reassuring them, and also, if possible, establish communication with their loved ones where probably they are not connected. Maybe they have been separated with their children, with their families. If you're able to establish where they come from, their parents, please establish that connection as soon as possible, because reassurance coming from a person known to a child has much more impact as compared to reassurance coming from someone who is not known to the child. So where possible, please, this is what we'll highly encourage. And lastly, for children, I think talk to them about the fact that they might not be able to see their friends in school in the coming week, and there might be delay. This also causes anxiety among them. I know those who are already excited to be going back to schools. Talk to them why that is not possible. If you're not affected, have some situation to allow them to call their friends, parents, where they are, provide these services to them to check if they are safe, because that contact also helps them to manage anxiety. I think I'll leave it at that point, Joseph, for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Alex. And we really appreciate you for taking your time. We really appreciate you as an individual. We appreciate the Kenya Red Cross for all the interventions that they're putting in place to ensure that children are safe, to ensure that the society is safe. And we at Mtoto News, we want to give thanks for you and want to ensure that we are here if you need to work with us in one way or another. And also, we'll also be reaching out to ensure that we keep our children safe. Thank you so much, Mr. Alex, and keep keeping children safe. And thank you so much for the tips. So, to Ms. Gracious, I had asked the role, what are you doing as a parent to ensure that children are safe, and what that you yourself are safe and that the children are safe?
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much again, Joseph. As I said about children, one thing, as Alex had mentioned, there is one thing also, me as a person and the group of ladies that we're working with, we're just doing this charity. We're really emphasizing on those people who are coming to take the content, that you should not get direct photos for our children. We may not be directly involved or directly connect to them, but we know the rights of children. So that is one thing we are really fighting. Second, we really going to, like yesterday, we were in those areas, and our key issue is trying to talk to the parents as much as the hassles are to go out because life has to continue. Please to let the kids left in a safe place. Those ones who are in churches to be left in churches. They should not go out with them, because a child to get out of your hand when crowding is there, when the rain starts dropping, it's so easy. So those are some of the things we are trying to talk to parents, that it's either you leave your child with at a safe place, and now you as a parent, you can go out and do something. Also in our areas, like personally, what I can say, we are mostly checking on time. The most times that the government is keeping, like meteorologists are keeping up, updating that from this time you should be at a safe place. Like we can see in the morning, today morning, when the notice came to say that from today, from 3 p.m. it will be so that the rainfall will be so much. We were able to send the messages to so many people, to share with people, so that at least people can be safe at that point. So there's nothing much we can do as per now, apart from now, like we are also trying to work with like our area MPs and the environment conservation organization, to make sure like the areas that are flooded in matters of like the what do we call them? We are able to open some of the areas that are closed. From Mathare, we come to Embakasi West, where we can understand that in 2018, the UN Habitat declared Embakasi West as an urban, like an urban village, where also it has been so much affected. But the affection of like Embakasi West is not the rivers that are busted, but most of these areas where the water pass, they are flooded, the environment crisis that been there, the places are closed with a lot of plastics and so those are the litters. Those are the kind of things we are trying to involve even the pickers, the estate pickers, to try and keep these openings are safe, so that when the water comes or when the rainfall comes, the water is able to run smoothly. So those are the kind of things we are trying to keep awareness about, the environment awareness, and I can say it has really helped. Nowadays, some of the places. sorry for that. Some of the areas that we have seen a lot of manpower. People are coming out in large to do what they are supposed to do, and we can say there is a lot of improvement. And we are happy doing things and also working forward to see these areas can maintain the same way as we are doing now and into the future to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Gracias. And just as we finish, I want to ask the child who is here. He's representing other children that I've also seen some Q&A from a child and someone who is below the age of 18, and they asked how can they join the Red Cross, and information has been given in the Q&A session. Alex has mentioned that there's a registration fee of, or rather a joining fee of 100 shillings for children or anyone below the age of 18, and a fee of 500 for people who are above the age of 18, and that just shows me the initiative that children are taking to ensure that they want to keep the society safe. They want to keep other children safe, and they also want to keep they themselves safe. I will also have another question on how one can donate, and a link has also been given in the Q&A session. Just go to the Red Cross website, and there's the donations tab or page where you can give your donation. So thank you so much for everyone that is engaging us in the Q&A session, and also if you have more questions, you can keep engaging us. Even at the end of this webinar, you can find us on our social media platforms at Mtoto News. www.mtoto news is our website, and you can keep engaging us and learning more on what we do. So, to Evans, what is your message to children out there as you finish in this particular time?
As we finish, my message is to the children. You might see that those people who like learning go to school. It's not because they like learning. They know what to go to school. I'm not saying that you don't know what to go to school, but now what I'm trying to say is during this flood season, if you are a grown up, take care of yourself, take care of your younger siblings, and if there's a way, if there is anywhere you can get help, try. Apart from that, please, I would like to urge you, like, change your mindset about education. Don't be like, because the teacher does not, like, because the teacher has a lot of notes, I want to go to school, I will just complain and say, and tell the teacher, our home was flooded, or just let the teacher don't be a good thing. So I think right now, what you can do, just change your mindset. It's still the way you are revising. It is better if you are in school because you are learning. So change your mindset on how, if you are doing something right, do it. It is never late to do something right. Even if you are doing something wrong for 12 years, it is never late to do something right. That's my message. Something I want to pass again, keep yourself safe. It's never too late to do the right thing and keep yourself safe. That's my message.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Evans, and thank you for ensuring that you have a message for your fellow children, and also just highlighting what you are doing as a child to ensure that you're keeping yourself safe. So if we have other people who have maybe tips on safety, you can type it on the chat box as we finish. And maybe just to Ms. Gracias, what is your parting shot on this conversation? How to keep children safe during this season? Maybe 1 minute as we finish.
One minute is long. I want to talk to the parents. The parents will be here. Yeah, sure. And even as we continue saying, as the Evans have said, it's never too late, and it is just the best thing you can do to yourself. It is keep unto it as the communication is going. We have been advised, we have been given the links. the government is still giving us updates. Like, yes, it is just the right thing. Just be safe. Just let our children be safe. That is the best thing we can do for now. It's so much hurting to see kids dying, to see kids, like, it is unbelievable. But let us do the right thing. Just be safe. Wherever you are, keep it in your mind. Let's preach and say children first. Talking about the children, talking about ourselves, let us do the right thing. Let us just be safe. We know the best ways to do that in this time. We know where we are supposed to go at a certain time, the areas we're not supposed to go at a certain times. So let us be safe. Children first, do the right thing, and be safe.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And as a finish, I just want to urge all of us that we should someone is asking if we can have more information to be shared and even activities that children can do to manage anxiety. And like I mentioned, more information will be shared on the question also. I've noted it down. And also on other questions that might be coming up. Like I mentioned, you can keep engaging us on our social media pages, on our social media platforms, which is Mtoto News, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, and every other platform. So keep engaging us on that, and all these questions will be answered. And we'll also keep working with Red Cross to ensure that the Kenya Red Cross, we are having the right information on children. And just as we finish, I also have a message to each and every person out there. First of all, to the government, I would love to urge the government to communicate digitally, because we currently have AI which is able to detect weather patterns, and it's able to tell us tomorrow this is going to happen, that we are going to experience rain in this particular area, we are going to, have this and this happening. So I'd really love to urge the government to communicate digitally, because we have 63.9 million mobile connections in Kenya, and this is quite a large number of the country's population that is connected to phones. Just an SMS alert, for example, or on the social media platform, that would be really helpful. Another thing I would also love to urge religious institutions and also individuals, if you're able to support someone who has been affected by the floods, and you're really in a position to help them, to keep them a relative, a friend, or even a neighbor, just to keep their things for them. For example, to host them for some time before they get things back together for themselves. I would really urge you to do that. And last but not least, this will be to, I know everyone nowadays is a content creator, and I just want to urge each and every one of us, this is not the time to get carried away. Because the situation is really serious. This is a serious situation, and people are suffering. Our children are having anxiety, and they don't know where they should fall. And this is not the opportunity for you to create content with people's crisis. Don't go out showing people that I am trying to help, while your intention is creating content for whatever reason. Please be considerate of people, be considerate of other people, and ensure that safety is coming first with their data, with their well-being, and every other part that everyone might be willing to be safe. And so just to also answer the question on how can children, or who can children reach to ensure that they keep off the anxiety. We have the child helpline from Childline Kenya. It is a toll-free line, 116. You can call at any time. It operates 24/7. We also have the number that has been given by Red Cross, 119 1199, which is a Red Cross toll-free number, and you can always call that. And I want to appreciate each and every one of us for taking your time to join us for this particular webinar. And without taking much of your time, keep engaging us on our social media, and our communications team will highlight the different, yes, it is now showing the emergency numbers to call, and you can call those numbers. We have the Kenya Red Cross number, other than the one that has been given by Mr. Alex of 1199. We have the 0703 037 000. We'll put this up on our social media platforms. We also have the National Disaster Operations Center, which has a number you can call 0800 721 571. We also have the Nairobi County. It has a toll-free number, which is 1508. Without further ado, I want to appreciate each and every one of you for joining us and for ensuring that you're at the forefront of keeping children safe. Thank you so much to our child panelists. Evans, keep doing it, keep advocating for the rights of children, keep putting this message out there. Thank you so much to our parents for ensuring that you take your time of being on the ground, helping the children, and that you're still doing more. Like tomorrow, you're going to pipeline to ensure that more children are being kept safe. I also want to thank the Kenya Red Cross for all the work that you're tirelessly doing. Also, to Mtoto News, thank you so much for convening this wonderful webinar. And at least now we are more knowledgeable on what we are going to do and keep out on more communication from Mtoto News International. Thank you so much. And this marks the end of our webinar.